So we are live only now?
All
Yes.
right,
Perfect.
Cedric. Uh,
Yes.
to our community, we had a little bit of technical issue, and now we are officially live. Uh, a quick introduction. This is day two of the webinar series, and today's conversation is on from concept to capital building investor-ready projects. We have Clinton of us, which of course is going to introduce himself, and Cedric going to do the same. Since we are already behind time, we'll just jump straight into the webinar. Cedric, over to you.
Yeah, so we are live now, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Or not?
we are live.
Okay.
We are live now.
Sorry everyone. So we had some technical background. We had started actually the webinar, so we'll start again. So thanks again, Clinton, for being with us. Uh, Quick introduction. So Clinton is a managing partner and founder of Kumi Analytics, which is specialized in digital monitoring for climate solutions. You will present it better than I do in a few minutes. So thank you so much, Clinton, for having joined us.
Thanks, Cedric. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our conversation.
Okay, great. And yeah, so actually for everyone, we started already the webinar. We'll start again. So sorry, Clinton, I will repeat quite a few things. Um, so perfect. So this session will be split into three parts, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, uh, 20 minutes. So we'll start with the presentation. We will do then a discussion with Clinton, and then we will take questions from the audience. So um, I will. So this is the second day of the webinar. Yesterday we had a session with another guest, Camila from Airbus, who with whom we discussed the key trends in climate markets and how to make investor-ready projects. This is what we will discuss today. So we'll focus much more on investment readiness, and we'll have a discussion with Clinton around digital monitoring, which is one of the key aspects when you try to fundraise as well, to show the readiness of your project. And tomorrow it will be another topic. So quickly on Human Planet and Terava. So we are a group of companies specialized in impact advisory, and we support project developers and entrepreneurs to get access to markets to fundraise across sectors. To date, we have done mobilization of close to $500 million across many countries. And this is the first time we are launching an accelerator specifically dedicated to climate solutions. We had 3 to 4 cohorts of accelerators before, and we have seen a demand around carbon project and climate solutions. So we are very happy to launch it today. So as I mentioned, Human Planet and Terva, we support climate projects. Specifically on carbon projects, we work along the value chain, which means we support on the end-to-end, from the project design up to the carbon credit issuance, and including the monitoring of the project, where we have partners like Kumi Analytics to monitor, and we bring project developers to markets, and specifically on fundraising and access to investors, which is our key strength. A quick point on technology: we also use blockchain to improve transparency in the monitoring. So we have a digital platform built for this, and we integrate with partners, again with Kumi, where we had a project with the Asian Development Bank in the Philippines. So as something I already told before, but I will repeat because this time we are live. So most of the projects are actually, if you look at the projects which go to market, when you move from the ID to funding, you have usually at least a ratio of 1 out of 10, because you face a lot of bottlenecks and a lot of challenge. Even if you have a good project, sometimes you don't have the right access to investors, the right capabilities, or you get wrong advice, or you already spend a lot of money on specific type of advisors who are not necessarily fit for you. So yeah, it's not easy to move from the idea or the initial stage to funding, and that's why we have developed the accelerator actually to select. So this year, I mean, this cohort will select 3 to 4 projects with high potential for them to go through the accelerator, which means support in design, support in setting up the monitoring framework, and getting access to investors, and hopefully securing funding from specific investors. So we have opened the applications. We have already received quite many applications, and will be open for a few days. During the accelerator, the goal is actually to support you in all these steps. So we will work on methodology selection, having the foundation for project design documents, picking up the right digital MRV, getting access to also the financial model, and all these things. So this will be 5 months, 1 month for each thematic. So 1 month on discovery, 1 month on methodology and calculations, one on MRV, PDD, financial model, and at the end we will do either a demo day, or we will actually give access to our network of investors once the project is investor ready and ready to go to market and to be pitched to investors. So one example of the projects that we have currently developed, I think the one which is having a lot of momentum right now is in Mexico, in the state of Chiapas, where it is actually several projects. So one is mangrove, one is conservation, one is biochar. There is also afforestation. And we have access to, yes, I think 150 to 200,000 hectares. And I was actually there a few months ago. You see the mangrove on the left, the banana plantation actually on the right. And we have secured for this project to date with an anchor investor who is investing around $10 million. And this is feasible because we have been able to tailor the project and to work on finding the right fit, for the right investor. So yeah, so this is what we'll try to do. I think in the interest of time, I will try to speed up to give the floor to Clinton in a few minutes. But yes, if we look at a few advice before we continue on the discussion. When you build a project, there are a few things that you need to check early stage. One is methodology. So having the right methodology, choosing the right standard. The second one is the MRV, and we'll hear from Clinton. It's actually key to have the right digital monitoring system in place to be able to report about the project. You need to have a very good quality of the PDD, and we advise also to really include the community in the project from the design. So it's not only sharing revenue and sharing benefits with the project communities. It's usually a must. But if you can involve communities in the design of the project, so for mangroves, for instance, it would be to have seed banks, managed by communities. Actually, it's one example. It's actually something which is recommended. In terms of standards, so there are several standards. We have listed here the biggest one. Verra Gold Standard usually together represent 80 to 90% of the market. Puro.earth is actually recommended usually for biochar. So the different types of standards apply to the different types of projects. And when you go actually to pitch investors, the investors will ask specific questions, but there are some key test questions that they will always ask. So first of all, they will check the financials. So you really need to have a solid case in terms of being able to justify your capex, your investment, and have credible revenue assumptions. So securing an offtake is best. So yeah, financial is really the number one. Number two, around regulation. So as you know, today, Article 6, CORSIA, it's quite evolving in the market, and but it's best to be able to work together with governments or the public, sector in your country to be able to have access to the letter of authorization for your project and to have the right channels, to communicate with your projects. And yeah, I think these are the main things. One thing on DMRV, and it will allow us to transition also for the discussion with you, Clinton. Today, DMRV is actually so DMRV for monitoring, reporting, and verification. Digital is actually a must. Um, we used to do it. It used to be done either remotely or through consultants who would visit on the ground. But if you want to get access to the right investors and the institutional investors today, DMRV is actually needed to really demonstrate the integrity of your project. So I will stop here. We had a few slides, but in the interest of time, I want to give the floor to you, Clinton, for the discussion. And we are really live, so I'm very happy to finally have you, Clinton, for the discussion and to be able to share with the audience. So thanks again for joining. So maybe we can start with a quick intro. So you are founder and managing partner at Kumi Analytics, but if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about Kumi to start with, it would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Cedric. So, Clinton LeBee, I'm the founder and the CEO slash managing partner of Kumi Analytics. And we basically are really focused on providing high integrity and audit grade analytics for environmental projects and specifically for carbon projects. A little bit about myself. I've been in the satellite imagery industry for 34 years. Started back in 1992, which is hard to believe, but I guess time flies. And
Mm.
one of the things I love about satellite imagery is that it's constantly changing and it's incredibly diverse, and you can do a lot of different things with it. And so we're really focused on nature-based solutions. And when I first started, I worked with the inventor of digital image processing. He's one of the three inventors recognized for inventing actually image processing across everything. He built the first image processing system in the 50s for NASA. And
Mm.
I was lucky enough to work with him in the 90s. And he would always say that satellite imagery is the richest source of information, but it's very difficult to extract the value out of it. And we wouldn't be able to do that until we have unsupervised classification. So in today's language, unsupervised classification is machine or deep learning. And so I was lucky enough to work on the first long-term environmental monitoring program with the U.S. government for looking at monitoring environmental areas of interest. And anyway, fast forward 25 years later, I'm at Google, and I was heading up global strategy for Maps and Earth. And I started to see unsupervised classification or deep learning happening with satellite imagery. And so I realized that now is the time, and left Google, which is admittedly a difficult place to leave, and started Kumi Analytics. And I combined that knowledge with the experience I had with long-term environmental monitoring to focus on environmental applications. And so that's really how we started out.
Okay, great. Thanks for the intro. And yeah, it's always a tricky move from Google to launching your
Yeah.
own. I have done similar move. It's yeah, we we
Yeah.
it's very
At first, my wife was upset with me, but now, things are looking good and things are improving, and so
yeah.
she's not upset with me anymore.
Okay, it's the most important. Yeah. So no, and also I think we had the same something in common is that we have been entrepreneurs also during the COVID and all the crises in the markets repeatedly, and I think Singapore is a good place actually because Terava is in Singapore as well, where the ecosystem is supporting based on success actually, and yeah, I think it's yeah, well, between entrepreneurs is very impressive
Yeah.
what you guys have accomplished in the market, which is not an easy market also. Yeah.
Actually, we built the first remote sensing-based methodology for measuring carbon stocks with support of the Singapore government. It was part of the efforts of the Singapore government to come out of COVID as the leader in green finance, and
Mhm.
it was called Emerging Stronger Together Task Force. And so we built the demonstration and the proof of concept to show how we could measure carbon stocks with satellite imagery.
Yeah. Great. So thank you so much for sharing this. So maybe if we can move a bit to Kumi Analytics itself, if you could share, about uh, what does Kumi Analytics actually do, the offering as well, and the actual projects, you are working on in the climate and the nature space.
Sure. So I think in any carbon project, the first thing, as I'm sure you've discussed in some of the prior sessions, is getting the communities to sign up and to identify the land and to have the land rights. Once that's done, um, what we do is we will work with the project developer to identify where they should need to focus on, both from a perspective of collecting ground data. So we'll identify the locations for the ground data plots. We'll identify areas that are plantable. So if it's a reforestation project, where the bare areas are of any given size, they could say, show me every area, 50 square meters or larger in the project area that's bare so that we can plant in. And then we'll do a variety of analyses, whether it's terrain mapping, and I can show all of this in the demo. And so we basically get a good understanding of the project area, and then we provide those points for samples to the project developer. Simultaneously, once that's done, we then start tasking satellites. And we use both, some satellite data that's available freely, but we also, depending upon the level of integrity that's desired, can use premium satellite data sets in order to have the highest accuracy and ideally get the best rating by the ratings agencies, as
Mhm.
well as higher confidence with investors. And so from there, once the satellite data comes in, we do a lot of pre-processing. One of the things, if any of you look at Google Maps, you'll see that some images are bright, some are dark, and there's a little bit of a variance. And you'll notice this when you're looking at Google Maps in the satellite mode. So we correct for all those disturbances that's called radiometric processing. We correct all the data and so that we have an accurate and consistent data set, as well as atmospheric distortions. And then there's geographic distortions. So we'll correct for all of these different things that are basically tied to satellite imagery. And then we combine the satellite imagery points, for that coordinate that we collected ground data. We take those points, we combine those measurements on the ground where we sent the teams out to collect the field data with the pixel values that we have from the satellite data. And then that then goes into the machine learning model or the deep learning model, which then starts to interpret. So it looks and says, okay, this point has X amount of biomass, and these are the pixel values for that coordinate. And then it starts to figure out based on all the pixel values from both radar as well as optical imagery, what that biomass estimate is. And then from there, as we then test it. And so we take 70% of the data, either 70 or 80% of the data, and then the remaining balance, 70 or 80% is used for training the model, and then the remaining 20 or 30% is used to test the model. And when the accuracy is close enough and looks good, like it can predict what those other points should be, then we go to full estimation mode, and then we use that model to then estimate the entire project area from wall to wall of the biomass values. And then, as part of that, that's for the above ground biomass. We also then have that same model applying for the below ground biomass estimates, which is more of just the root system. Simultaneously, they'll be collecting soils data. We then take all that information and we put it together in a comprehensive report, as well as and provide details so that that can go into the PDD or the state change reports. And so that's basically the process in a quick summary.
Okay, perfect. I don't know if you want to share a few screens if you have Andy, or otherwise I have a follow-up questions, which is what is so if you compare project developers with DMRV and without DMRV, because you have discussed with many of them, and on the other side for the investors, what is the advantage of having the DMRV in place for your project, and what it can unlock, in terms of access to investors, stuff like insurance, all these things.
Yeah, it's I think the expression to use for this would be table stakes. It's pretty much required to
Mhm.
have DMRV now. Investors will avoid you if you do not have a way to measure and monitor and track the health of the project via remote sensing data. When you start looking at premium data sets, people will say, well, why should we go with a higher end? It's not required, right? One of the things to keep in mind, and this is from B0's research, which is one of the ratings agencies, for those of you that aren't familiar with them, is that one increase in the rating represents an 87% increase in overall value for that project. So investors will pay, buyers will pay more for the offsets if you have a higher rating. And so while the DMRV is important, but accurate and high integrity, and as I mentioned, audit grade DMRV is even better because at the end of the project, when you're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of tons of offsets,
Mm.
it just a small percentage increase in that value pays for the investment that you make into the monitoring solution.
Yeah. And just a quick one, I think last time we met, you mentioned something around insurance, what it can unlock in terms of insurance products. So if you could share a bit more about the potential of DMRV in the space.
Yeah, similarly, when you want to insure a project, you want to be able to demonstrate the integrity of
Mm.
the project, and the higher quality that you have of that reporting, the better the insurance products, or the lower cost the insurance products will be. And even one of the top insurance companies in this space has said if they're using our services, they will give them a discount because they know that there's high integrity. And so this, once again, it's a way to ensure that what we say is there is there. And that's really the goal of DMRV is to provide a science-based, auditable record of what actually exists on the ground. And the granularity of that analysis determines the integrity. So the higher the granularity, the higher the integrity. And so this is another good point of where a high integrity DMRV really makes a big difference, both for getting insurance that will
Yeah.
basically insure the product, the offsets, as well as investors.
Yeah. Now, it's super interesting. And so if we want to deep dive a bit more into a specific example of what has been achieved by Kumi, I remember, so we discussed a project in Sumatra, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to share a bit more about the project, and also I think it could be useful for the audience who are in this situation where they have a project, usually early stage, and they want to know, to anticipate a bit, what can be the challenge ahead, or what they can, what is ahead of them. So if you could share with us about the project, the origination of the project, like the background, how it came up, and what were the initial steps, and the added value of DMRV in this case.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we have several projects in
Oh, yeah, of
Sumatra.
course. Mhm.
I'll talk about a few of them. I don't want to isolate one,
Yeah.
but I think one of the things that we found, and it's important to keep in mind, like project developers have a very positive intention, right? And so they want to restore an area or protect an area. And but they're very large areas, so it could be, tens of thousands of hectares, and it's impossible to know what's happening everywhere on that project area. So we've had situations where we found little small plantations
Mhm.
in the middle of the project area, and so we notify, and that happens in that initial assessment of the project. We notify the project developer, hey, this is you've got a problem here. There's whether in this case it was a palm plantation, a very small palm plantation that had
Mm.
been popped up in there. We found other areas that were, just all invasive species, and informing them that either need to be removed from the project area or they need to fix the situation on the ground as well. There's a lot of different things we will see. Deforestation in the middle of the forest where someone will go in and cut down a bunch of trees and no one really knows about it.
Yeah.
So these are the types of things that will get uncovered very early on, and it really saves the headaches, saves the project developer from having a lot of problems later in the project. The other thing that's also really beneficial in that early stage is to identify problem areas, right? So where we see the deforestation happening. So which communities do they need to engage with early on to try and get them to change that behavior? Because at the end of the day, people will say satellite imagery is complicated, and fair enough. Yeah, it can be complicated. But I think it's much more difficult to work with communities and to get them to change behaviors than it is to process satellite data. Because we need to figure out which communities are having the challenges that we'll be experiencing the challenges with, as well as, where we can, benefit by in terms of helping them improve the overall situation. So it could be anything from helping them find new ways to find economic activities other than cutting down the forest to generate revenue. And so
Mhm.
I can help you find out where the trees are getting cut down, but then it's to the project developer to then go down, work with the communities, engage with them to help them understand what other financial opportunities exist for them to achieve their livelihoods.
Yeah. No, very interesting. So yeah, I think it shows like that the MRV is not only for reporting, but it's also for a tool that you use to actually design the project, and it has live implications on the project development itself, right? It's more an enabler than just a reporting tool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do is we allow, even though it's, let's say, a project area, like say the project in Chiapas is a very large area, it
Mm.
involves many different communities. So while the overall biomass may be one number for this large area that's covering the entire coastline, for example, we can break it down by community and and show the changes. And I can show this as well, where we see the changes by community of the biomass for the forest area in that community. So what we noticed is one community, for example, was they didn't stop cutting down the trees, where the others were all,
Mm.
going working with the project developer, and said they changed their behaviors in terms of not cutting down the trees. So we identified the deforestation early on, and then they arranged a meeting with all the leaders of that particular town, the village, and said, "Hey, look at the satellite images." They pull up the satellite image and say, "Here's the forest last year. Here's the forest this year. What happened?" And they'll say, "Oh, you know, so and so has
Yeah.
been cutting the trees down," and they could act on it very quickly. And then what they said to them, they said, look, we're promising to provide you a new school. We're promising, in this case, it was a school, but it could be, a road or many, many different things, fisheries, a lot of different opportunities in terms of the social benefits. If you keep cutting down the trees, we can't provide you the school. So what happens?
Mhm.
All of the moms talk to the husbands, say, you better stop cutting down those trees.
Mhm.
Otherwise, our kids aren't going to be able to go to school. And so it has a direct effect, and we can isolate that down to the local community, which is a unique thing that most that I believe we're the only ones that are currently offering that additional level of
Mm.
granularity.
Yeah. Nice. This is where you demonstrate really the integrity of the project, right? Because if you look at the investor or the one putting the money in the project, they can actually this type of story is very convincing also that there is transparency on data and what's happening on the ground. Yeah. Perfect. I want to give some time to the audience. I just had one more question, I think which is more related to the registries, actually, because it has been one of the things in the market for project developers, which has not always been very clear, which is integration between registries and DMRV and the methodologies and all these things. I know that at Kumi, actually, you are quite advanced in this topic, actually. So maybe if you could share your views on the upcoming. I mean, so it already exists in a way, but it's not fully integrated enough, and it's taking time. So if you could share your views on the integration between DMRV and registries and how you handle it also with the project developers.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple, there are several out there right now. I think, we built the methodology for Ox Carbon, which is very much directly tied to the approach that we use. And so we developed the methodology from the ground up, and that was jointly with Oxford University. Simultaneously, we also did the first remote sensing based project, and got this first project to get approved to move forward with gold standard. And that's another one where there's a fairly tight integration of the data that we provide. And then also with Vera, we're also working with them to provide enhanced DMRB, as well as full digital integration. So going directly into the project hub at Vera, which dramatically improves the timelines. And we're working very closely with the senior leadership there, and that allows for, you know, right now there's a significant delay in
Mm.
projects being reviewed just because there's a backlog. When you have the enhanced DMRV or the submission through the project hub, the full digital solution, then you cut to the front of the line. And
Mm.
so this is another way where the data is going directly into that registry, and that standards body. And so that way it just passes a lot of the delays, is what I'd say. And so with Ox Carbon, from the time that we started to the time that they were actually issuing offsets, they were issuing offsets approximately 15 months after the project start date. So that's
Mm.
a year of state change analysis and then plus 3 months. It's about as fast as I think anyone's seen.
Yeah.
Vera, there's still a little bit more time there, but we're working with them to try and improve those timelines.
Okay. Super interesting. No, thank you so much, Clinton. For all these insights. Um, Maybe I want also to give the floor back to the audience. So I think, Jonathan, you might have some questions from the audience. I know we got some questions before no, ahead of the webinar by email. So if you want to go through
Yeah,
through the questions.
absolutely. Thank you, Cedric, and to you, Clinton. Thank you. So now we'll open the floor for Q&A. If you have not sent a question, head over to the Q&A icon and just send the questions, and we'll try our best to share with the speakers. Do not put your question in the chat, or sometimes I get mixed up with a lot of different chats. So we start with a couple of few questions. This one's for you, Clinton. They said, yes, what about if community-based family level projects, organic and 100% nature, as a solution, impact direct community? I think this question is not very clear. Let's go to the next one. Question for Clinton. What data do you use as a target biomass for training your ML models to estimate biomass? And do you measure the uncertainty of the biomass estimations? That's for you, Clinton.
Yes, we do. So in terms of the data sets, we use half meter a pan 2 meter optical multispectral 8-band multispectral. And we also use 3 meter full polarization synthetic aperture radar and L-band. I can speak to basically our some of the projects. We've achieved a relative root mean square error of five, about plus or minus 4.5% of the total carbon stock. So that's a relative root mean square error, which is the ultimate. So that's the range within a 95% confidence interval, which is quite good. And so anything below 20 on the relative root mean square error is sufficient to pass. But then once again, we're looking at trying to improve for the investors. So this is where a good example of this is a large project in Pakistan. They complied with all the requirements of Vera for the resolution of the data, but then the reviewers downgraded them from a triple B to a double B, and they were using the high quality data sets to review. All right, so it's important to understand that you can still get hurt, if you will, by the ratings agencies, even if you follow the standards and the requirements. And so the tighter you have for the range of values and the and your confidence interval, the better. So that's did I cover all the questions? I think there may be one more part of that in that. Did I get
Yeah,
everything?
there's a follow-up. There's a
Oh,
follow-up question to that.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
We are live.
Okay. So yeah, he's asking, sorry about the biomass training. So what about the biomass training? They want to know what about the biomass training data.
So we tend to shoot for an R squared value of zero point 0.7 or above. So in the machine learning model, we'll target an R squared value of zero point 0.7. Sometimes it's a little bit less. And then also, of course, the root mean square error being another key component of that.
Thank you, Clinton. So I hope that answered your question. So we're going to take question from the community. So what we do is that we send an email and ask our community if you cannot join, ask the speaker any questions. So we have a couple of them. This one say, how is technology and digital MRV changing the way investors assess climate projects today compared to 5 years ago? This one's for you, Clinton. Cedric, you can also add to it.
Okay. I would just say I think we have to think about the pace of technology when we think about, like, say, for example, ChatGPT just came out about 3.5 years ago. And there's just been a dramatic change in the way that people look at technology. And I think that we're seeing a similar thing in the carbon markets. And what's happened is it's been about 5 years now. There were a series of scandals which caused a lot of problems in the market. A lot of large companies lost a lot of money as a result of those scandals. And so the industry responded by trying to implement various minimum levels of integrity through various standards bodies. And as part of that, regular monitoring is one of the key components to address the lack of integrity from the past. And so now it's really important to achieve that high level of integrity. And so I think we're seeing from an investor standpoint a shift from, okay, it's a carbon project, looks good, and all these great benefits to um, how I want to double check the integrity. I want to validate what data and information is available for me to confirm that. And as Cedric mentioned, we take the analytics that we're providing and put that into the blockchain. It's an immutable record of the project, and using data that's publicly available as well as commercially available that can be validated and that hasn't been modified. So this is really the key, I think, and major change that I think we've seen in the last 5 years. And Cedric, you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, definitely. I think even today you're right to explain with the comparison with with GPT and AI in every industry today with the changes and actually for carbon project, it did happen before GPT because we had, I mean, Kumi is one of the pioneers in the space. So if we want a comparison, like every industry is really being disrupted today, and for carbon, it will be the same. So the difference is very, I mean, it has nothing to, it's not even something we can compare. For anyone staying, in the old way, that we used to develop carbon projects, they won't even be able to get the investor meetings, or it's really now something you actually need to. And so one is that it's a criteria, but the second one is like as Clinton was explaining with the example, the communities planting trees and being able to differentiate on the ground, it will actually enable project developers to develop even better projects. So this is where it's kind of compounding effect, where it builds value and you can actually develop projects with better design and better qualities than what we used to see before. So let's see. I think in the market, because we had also issues in terms of integrity of projects, and so if some developers have bad intent, it's always, I mean, DMRV won't change the intent actually, and it's a way to say it, but it's a way for developers and investors to have these barriers that allows them to improve the integrity of the project. So for instance, the projects that we see on our side with this type of solution, it's very difficult to be able to to change the stories that's what's happening on the ground, because you need to change not only one data but like the whole data set that is being collected. So yeah, it's very and always impressed by Kumi's work. That's why, and thanks again for being with us, Clinton.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Clinton, and thank you, Sujik. There's another personal question here. This one's for you, Clinton. This one say, you transitioned from companies like Google and Microsoft into the climate sector. What motivated that shift personally, and what lessons from the tech world are most valuable in climate finance today?
I'm sorry, the last part of that question was?
The last part of it is that what lesson from the tech world are most valuable in climate finance today?
Uh,
Listen.
Hmm.
yeah, as I said, my wife thought I was crazy, um, but I think one of the things for me, it's I think being master of your own destiny is something, and so that's one part of it. As I said, Google's a great company to work for, and as is Microsoft, both great places to work. But at the same time, it's a big company, and you're part. There's when I joined my Google, there was 30,000 employees. When I left, there were 210,000 employees. And so in a company with 210,000 employees, there are a lot of different objectives and goals. And so sometimes you see opportunities and you want to do something about them, right? And I felt that the best way to do that was to start something from the ground up. I worked for a small startup, early in my career, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It's very hard, but you have a lot more impact on the direction of that entity. So I would say, that was a lot of it for me personally, and knowing that I can help, protect forests and help in restoring forests also is a big motivator. It really is. Um, and so that's and working for a big company is nice, but it's also a big company, so sometimes it's frustrating, right? And I won't go too much more into that one.
They're
But
like,
yeah. But on the second part, I think the lesson really from I would say bringing it to the climate space is embracing change and being able to deal with change. Things are changing faster than we can comprehend. And so if we resist it, it becomes even harder to deal with the changing reality that we have. And so, a lot of times other things like whether it's, mindful exercises or just taking a deep breath from time to time when things are changing so quickly, just to adjust to the new reality, if you will, is necessary. And so I think we've seen that in the climate space, particularly where projects that were fine without requiring this technology now requires the technology. We see a lot of changes in the way that projects are managed and implemented, and that's going to allow them to continue to succeed. If they are stuck to the old way of doing it, and don't believe in certain processes, like saying how I want to move to a digital submission or I don't want to do that, and they're going to pay a price, and from just a profitability perspective, a timeline perspective, it's going to make it harder and harder for them to succeed. So, paying attention to what's happening in the market and adapting to it, take a deep breath. You'll figure it out. And sometimes it's frustrating when it's new, but we're very flexible. The human race is very flexible and able to adapt to a lot of different things. So we just have to be persistent and determined.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clinton. Clinton, before we move on to the other questions, I want to let you know that we have 5 minutes to wrap this up, and there are more
Mm.
questions. Are you comfortable answering them?
Yeah, sure. If you want, I'll try and be more succinct.
It's quite late in Singapore,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's another question that say, what is the accuracy of data collected? Does digital measurement via satellite work with mixed culture? This is for you, Clinton.
So, okay, so the pixel. So this is one of the reasons why we use the satellites that we use. They're different. There's absolute accuracy and relative accuracy. Absolute accuracy is what we would call root mean square error, circular error 90, where it means that if I give you a latitude and longitude, I have a 90% chance that it's going to fall within a circle. And and the data that we use has about a 3 meter circular error. So it's going to be anywhere, 3 meters around. It's going to be somewhere plus or minus 3 meters. Some other satellites, have a 12 meter circular error and even more from there. So it's really important to understand that when you're combining satellite imagery with ground data, because if I have a 10-meter plot and I have a 12-meter circular error, I could be applying the pixel values to measurements on the ground that aren't even connected. With the 3 meter circular error, I know that a good percentage of my ground measurements are on those pixels. We then also can do several different processes, but you can stretch pixels, compress pixels in order to improve the overall accuracy of those pixels, as well as tie them to known ground control points to improve the accuracy to about 1 meter, which is something we also will always do if we have the data to do so.
Thank you, Clinton. Cedric, this one is for you. Uh, Clinton, please feel free to add to it.
I was trying to
From
take
your
some rest.
experience,
Clinton was doing a
yes,
great job.
from, from your experience, what are the biggest reasons climate projects fail to become investor ready, even when the environmental impact is strong?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to mention during the presentation is that we see quite a lot of projects which are very sound in terms of technically and very high impact. But after it's actually like starting a business or launching a business. You can have the good idea and the right even the a good product. It does not mean that you will actually scale and make it to market. So for carbon project is the same actually. You need to have the right capabilities in terms of design, to have a very strong design um, on the technical side. And after it's also having access to the right entities in the market, right? So specifically on the fundraising side, it's actually a small environment, and it's always the same investors and the same actors again and again. Um, and um, and there is this notion of trust where if you pitch a new project, they will also see who is backing the project or who is supporting the project. So having the right right ecosystem around you is actually important to open these doors. So this is one, and after being very very cautious about the quality of the advisors or the team which is supporting the project, because you actually need A players to be able to to fundraise from I would say A investors. So it's also one of the things. So having the right team with the right capabilities, the right track record, and having done it before, it's one of the key. Otherwise, you stay stuck in a smaller ecosystem, which may be difficult for scaling.
All right, Jem here. I hope that answered your question. We have roughly 1 minute to go. If you have further more questions, please feel free to reach out to Clinton. His email is in the chat, and feel free to reach out to Cedric. We cannot take all of the questions right now. We are so sorry, community. But please come back tomorrow with as many questions as possible. We'll try our best to cover them up again. As always, Clinton, do you have any last final word for the community before we wrap this up?
I would just say to everyone, best of luck in your endeavors, and high integrity is important, both at a personal level as well as a project level. So I encourage you to pursue that both personally and with the work that you do. And anyone on this call that wants to discuss the details of the technology, happy to do that. And just wishing you all very much success in protecting and conserving the environment. And with that, I want to also thank you for inviting me to this webinar. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you, Clinton. Over to you, Cedric.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Clinton. And yes, so thanks everyone for having joined as well. We just a quick word on the accelerator. So it's still open for application. I don't know if Ursi or Jonathan, you can put the chat the link to apply, and also the Calendly link for a consultation if anyone wants to have a meeting, and also if anyone is interested also to know more about Comi Analytics. I think we mentioned there is Clinton's email in the chat, right?
Chat.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll also send a follow-up email after the webinar. You can reply, and we will be happy to connect you with Clinton. Anyone. Great. Thanks, everyone, then. Thanks again,
Thank you, Cedric.
for having
Thank you, Clinton. And to our community, thank you for sticking around. We could have done this without you. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.